Cheap versus expensive adhesive sprays.
So for this test, we punctured the bottom of 2 buckets. One of the buckets made a little too big of a crack, so we had to save that one for the expensive option. First, we used the Gorilla adhesive spray and applied a generous layer on the outside and through the inside. And now for the expensive option. And instantly we noticed that the shape of the spray helped provide a nice even layer over the cracks. Also to note, we didn't apply a second layer through the inside using the expensive spray. And after about 20 minutes, it's time to test them. We started with the cheap option, and you could just see that the spray did not create a seal. And now to test the expensive spray. And as you can see, there's no competition here. And even with the expensive spray having to deal with a bigger crack on their bucket,
Expensive wins. Cheap versus expensive lighters.
the generic lighter took a little longer to light the fuse. Then we tried the same test, but this time on a paper towel. And for this test, the cheap lighter did light it up a little faster. So overall, here's my conclusion. The cheap lighter is going to be able to handle 99% of all tasks that you would need a lighter like this for. And the only real benefit to the expensive lighter is that it is windproof and it is a rechargeable lighter and won't run out of gas.
And cheap wins. Cheap versus expensive eyeliners.
So for our cheap option, we have a $4 Wet n Wild Mega Liner. And our expensive option is a Glamnetic Felt Tip Magnetic Liner. We drew out a line from each eyeliner. And after 7 minutes, I tried a simple wipe test. And the cheap liner still smeared, while the expensive liner seemed to be pretty indestructible and not coming off at all. Then we tried the wipe test, but with a little water. And the cheap liner was practically completely gone. And the expensive liner again did not come off. For the final test, we used a Neutrogena makeup wipe. And even then, the expensive liner was almost impossible to wipe off. Almost to the point where I was kind of worried how he was going to clean it off.
And expensive wins. Cheap versus expensive hair straighteners.
So we purchased a wig and tested out both straighteners. We tested to see how many strokes it would take to straighten the curly hair. For our cheap option, it took 5 strokes at max temperature. And now for our expensive option. And it only took 3 strokes with the expensive flat iron. Our cheap option is a $15 Conair flat iron, while our expensive option is a CHI original flat iron for $60. And judging from this test, the expensive flat iron takes the dub.
And expensive wins. Cheap versus expensive chalks.
First we have the cheap option, the white Crayola chalkboard chalk. And our expensive option are soft chalk pastels. I'd say expensive passes the happy face test. Then we tested out how well they could draw some cows. Here's the cheap cow. And here's the expensive cow. I would say the chalk looks like better quality. Next, we dropped them from about 5 feet to see how well they could handle it. And you can see the cheap option was more fragile and broke into more pieces. And lastly, we did a quick wipe test just to see how easy it was to erase them off the chalkboard. And for this test, I would say it was pretty much a tie.
And expensive wins. Cheap versus expensive bag sealers.
So for our cheap option, we're going to be using a life hack that involves a knife and a source of heat. So you're going to want to hold the 2 pieces of plastic that you're looking to fuse together, then apply the knife onto the plastic. It was a little difficult using a bag of chips, but here's what we could do. This is how you preheat the expensive option. It definitely worked a lot better. Now for the same test, but using a Ziploc bag. And honestly, I would say it worked pretty well. It pretty much sealed the whole thing except for the very bottom. And now for the expensive option. So unless you want to find yourself burning one of your good knives to get this done, I would go with the expensive option.
And expensive wins.